Cynthia, get down. Welcome in, everybody. So today, some fun things going on in the Sandstorm and the Sandbox. First of all, we're going to go through some quick news. If you didn't know, Sandstorm has an alpha pass to give away. So the Sandbox Season 3 is in full swing. Sandstorm has an alpha pass. They're giving it away. If you'd like to, try your luck with this raffle series, here's the link for that. It's a quick tweet. We'll take a little peek here. Doesn't help if I put it on screen, huh? But in that tweet, you can enter in for a chance to win your own alpha pass, valued at 500 sand plus, depending on how many assets you actually have. So we'll take a quick peek at this. To enter, you got to like and retweet. You tag 3 friends, you follow the Sandstorm, you join the Discord, and you follow the Twitch. Simple, right? Most of you are already doing those things. Tagging 3 friends, liking and retweeting. That's all you got to do. I'm going to go ahead and retweet with, tagging 3 friends that were here first. I saw we had the escape room artist. What's your tag, escape room artist? I know I'm following you. Well, I know Fred Fert's here. Saw Cynthia. Escape room artist. I'm embarrassed. What's your Twitter? But other than that, we also have a Sandstorm event going on live. The Sandstorm event being a Halloween trick-or-treat shenanigan. Escape Martin, thank you very much. I was putting the V in front of it. That's where I went wrong. But thank you. And so if you enter into that, you'll have a chance to win the Alpha Pass. It actually ends on the 13th. So you have, 3 days left? Good luck, everybody, for that one. The other event in the Sandstorm is the Builders Contest. This is the 16th Builders Contest, a Halloween theme with the Cyber Kongs. So I hope we have a lot of entries for this one. It will be published pretty much in their social hub. So you'll be able to walk around and explore all the different Halloween themed events. I know the biggest kind of rule here is there's no walls permitted. So it's not going to be a diorama, like a presentation with a box. Instead, you want it to be kind of like an open floor Halloween event, like bobbing for apples or, hitting a piñata, something you would do during the Halloweens, like some trick-or-treaters, somebody getting scared, stuff like that. Just no walls, because they want to have it in a social hub where you can view all of the different submissions. Pretty nice prize pool. I know first place, I think, is getting a big chunk of this 5,000 sand. But I think the top 10 to 20 will all get a little treat, little trick, maybe. Oh, thank you. Welcome in, everybody. So today, fun things going on in the Sandstorm stream. So we're actually going to be attempting to build a card game. And so we're kind of starting from scratch. I want to be able to walk you through my thought process. I'm going to try and keep this exclusive to the Sandstorm streams. This will be every Monday for the foreseeable future. 1 p.m. is our current start time. We're broadcasting right now live to Twitch and Twitter, but you can catch the VODs usually later on YouTube, and they stay on Twitch for maybe a week or 2. But other than building this card game live with you all, I do want to keep the floor open to answer Game Maker related questions. We're not going to go into deep dives and do a detour that takes 30 minutes. But if you have questions, this is a live kind of like place to ask and receive those answers, that feedback. So feel free to ask any questions you might have. But welcome in, everybody. I see Lord Can Wolf, Wicked, Donkoy, Cold Cuts and Cheese, Huddle Hill all popped in, and of course, Escape Room Artist Cynthia, Fred Ferd. Thank you very much. And if I missed anybody, just know that I appreciate you. Slater Aid's also hanging out in the background. He's our great producer. So without further ado, the first thing I want to point out is in the Sandbox, we are going to use NFTs I don't know if you were aware of this, but Sandbox is a crypto-based game. So what I did was, behind the scenes, I set up some OpenSea NFTs. So let's just take a quick peek at those. I made 3 little Pokemon-esque characters. We have my Firefly, my Frost Toad, and my Lychee. So I'm gonna pop these up on screen real quick. So each one of these characters we're going to put on a card in the Sandbox. And so, as you all know, or some of you know, in the Sandbox, we're able to display our NFTs. So first thing we'll do is we'll find one of our displays, one of our borders. I think I call them frames. So I've made a couple of these over time. In the Sandbox, they have provided, a couple super basic frames, although most of these just aren't aesthetically pleasing, so you want to make your own. But our frame here, we're going to add the NFT image component, and I'm going to take the URL for my little Firefly. So these are actually 3D AI generated art. We'll see if it pops up. There we go, our little Firefly there. And we will resize it to the frame, and then we'll take a peek at it. I'm not sure which, I think that'll be the front, so let's find out. Yeah, so that's going to be our art. You can see here I'm going to be attempting like a top-down view. We'll see how that feels. The first thing we'll do is we'll create our 3 characters that I set up. Very Pokemon inspired, but this is just kind of like the start to our card game. And just to get the ideas churning. I mean, as far as I know, like, card games in the Sandbox aren't really supported. So you have to find mechanics behind the scenes and logic that makes it work. So what I'll be doing for my own, personal experiments and for this series here on Sandstorm is we'll be using indicator components that will display the text, and it'll hopefully give it like a 3D view. So with my 3 characters, each one of them is going to have their own moves, and then they're also going to have like their own like deck that is going to be RNG based. And this is me kind of like explaining to you what I've thought so far in advance. Is the player will choose one of these 3 like monsters, and when they choose them, they're basically assigned a deck. A deck in trading card games is much like a deck of cards is shuffled and given like 3 to 5 cards that is then your hand, and in your hand you can play 1 to however many cards per turn, and then you discard 1 to how many cards per turn. So all of those mechanics are things we're going to be exploring over time. Hi there, welcome in everybody. Napara, Vox Machina, how you doing? Lord Canwolf, how? Hi. So now that we have our little monsters here, and it was relatively simple, all we did was we imported a piece of art, if you'll call it that, onto OpenSea. And so on OpenSea, I basically uploaded these PNGs. These are AI generated images that belong to me. And then I put it on OpenSea, and now I just use that link to put it into my game. So that was step 1. We basically have our, starting point. The next thing I wanted to do, and hopefully the Sandbox has uploaded them. They did not show up, but I will show you what I worked on before the stream started. Before the stream started, I made basically a card template. So in VoxEdit, I created a very simple asset. What wasn't simple, and I suppose I'll walk you through how I made these, was I used icons. So these are quote-unquote skill icons that are used in game development. I purchased these icons, And so I pixelized them, and that way I could bring them into the sandbox. So I technically own the rights to these images to use them in a card game. I can't sell them. So, for example, I won't be minting these and putting these on the marketplace, but rather use them for my own experiments. And so I imported 3 of them. And so each of these cards is essentially a square icon that I imported through Magicavoxel, which then I was able to export as a Vox file. So it went from PNG, so image, into Magicavoxel. And let's do that real quick. We'll walk through it. So let me get Magicavoxel up on screen. So in Magicavoxel, you can drag and drop any PNG. And so I purchased these skill icons. And I'm going to find a new one to use that maybe we'll use for something else later in the future. Sure, this is a great one. So this image here comes out rather large. These are probably the maximum size, so 256 by 256, which is far too large for our uses. But what I'll be doing is I'll save it, and that will allow me to save it as a Vox file. So this will be a yellow orb, we'll call it. And then let's see if I can show you my display. So with my display on screen, I'm going to import that folder or that file, so our yellow orb, which I just saved, and I'm going to drag and drop it into my Vox Edit folder. Then we'll go back into Vox Edit. And now I'll just import that file, which is now inside of my default Vox folder. It'll take a moment to load up. But that's all I needed Magicavoxel to. Magicavoxel is a great tool to learn if you're a game developer, and especially if you're a Vox Edit artist. The amount of things you can create that are outside of the capabilities of Vox Edit is astonishing. So I couldn't recommend more to add Magicavoxel to your repertoire. Hi VVox, welcome in. Great, so our orb had now been uploaded. I am now going to duplicate it, so I basically have a new version of it. So this is going to be our yellow small. And that's just a placeholder name as I set things up. So again, I made these in advance. All it was a border and then the icon centered. We can see here that by default, my icon is far too large. And for comparison's sake, here's the size of a human. So right now, my cards are already larger than the average avatar. And so that is essentially way too big for our uses. So what I'll do is I'll go into the icon. First of all, I'll flip it on the x-axis, so that'll allow it to be tilted upwards. And then I will add 1 Z block of depth, and then I'll halve the size. And then I'll do it one more time. So add 1 Z block of depth, and then halve the size. So the reason why I had to do that, so taking a step back here, so 256, 256, is because I can't have the size if it's 1 block. So by default, it was 1 block. So I won't be able to have the size. So all of my digits have to be even numbers before I can start reducing the size of it. And so right now we're looking for 64 by 64. I'll save it. And I'll go ahead and reset that pivot point. Save and exit. And now we can see my icon is pretty much ready to go. I purchased these icons from a Humble Bundle pack for game developers. So I own the rights to use it in my game. I can't resell it, so I wouldn't be able to mint it. But yeah, now that this is ready, the other thing I made was a border. Super simple. It's basically a 128 pixel tall, 72 by 2, so it's kind of like a thick, almost like cardboard stock. Saved it. And then I exported it and then added these to my Sandbox inventory. Now, back in the Sandbox, unfortunately, it's not really adding assets very quickly. This has been an ongoing problem for the last month now. Assets take a couple hours before they show up in your inventory. Is what it is. In the meantime, we can start working on indicators. So this would be the first thing I would approach when making a card game, is adding text that makes sense for each of my characters, as well as the abilities, as well as the user interface. So we can see here, I have a very basic user interface right now. And by basic, I mean non-existent. So each of my characters, I'm going to have the player on the bottom half of the screen, and I'm going to have the opponent on the top half of the screen. And then the player will be able to move in the middle here. And I'll have, of course, I'm thinking out loud here, but I'll have like a way to display the player's hand, so the cards in their hand, and then they'll be able to pick from that hand. So it'll probably be like in the middle of the screen here. And then they can play it either on their opponent's cards, or they can play it on their own cards. And so that's what I'm thinking about right now. And then we're also going to have resource tracking. We'll probably use health points for that. The reason why we would use health is because you can add and remove from health relatively easily, and you'll have a visual kind of tracker. We'll also probably attach a different type of visual tracker to that mechanic. And so these things we're going to be working on over time. Excuse me, I keep burping. My first thought was to have things closer to the camera. So if you see here, we're going to have perhaps like a user interface that will be kind of in front of the camera. So I want to get these little assets here close to the ground, but in a way that makes sense. So I can see these dots, these little magical dots. Those will like represent my resources, for example. Great. So we're still, building out the user interface. And if anybody has like recommendations, suggestions, or again, if you have any comments about things you're struggling with, if there's something you want me to help you troubleshoot while I'm in the game maker, feel free to ask. So we're going to be adding indicators to each of our assets, our cards, that will display their titles. So let's go ahead and set that up as we continue to think out loud and walk through the process of making a card game. This is very complex. It's not something that Sandbox innately supports. So, great. So we have our NFT image. I'm actually going to keep that as its own asset. And I'm going to start adding indicators to assets that would be attached to it. So we can grab these. So I'm going to have text on the top and text on the bottom of it. Also going to have text in the corners. So if you've ever played a card game, you usually have on, and by play, I mean a digital card game, you'll have health and attack. Those are the basic kind of elements that make up a card. Then you'll have more nuanced things and kind of traits. So for example, you'll have, with my characters here, we have fire, we have ice, and then we have grass. We might also add other, traits later on, but those will be the first three that we add. So the first thing we will do is add text to my firefly. So what I'll do is I'll have firefly top text, and then we'll have firefly bottom text. This will be firefly NFT. And so that way, in my hierarchy, I'll be able to sort these better. I'll even be able to attach them together. That's a great tool that we have with the hierarchy. So the top text and the bottom text will all be attached to my asset here. And now we're going to start adding the text via indicators. So I'm going to add component indicator. Escape from Artist says cardboard game logic is a challenge. Going through your board game, cleaning up. Oh yeah, dude. Like board games too. It's just there's so many mechanics going on behind the scenes. That's one thing I'm not too excited about is the tracking. So like if we have a deck of cards, being able to track that is going to be very there'll just be a lot of things going on behind the scenes for sure. So we want to be able to see this. We'll use the default distance, but the display name is going to be Firefly. Then we're going to go down to the bottom here. We'll add another indicator. This one's going to be fire. So that'll be type, fire type. We'll do fire type, sure. And then color. I'm going to use a hex code for this. And then we're going to save this hex code to use later on. I'm going to pull up the website I use on screen. So I highly recommend finding a HTML color or a hex code picker that you like. But for our uses, we're going to be picking a nice kind of like orange red that pops. We're going to have a black kind of background, so having that light color will really help. And so for now, we'll pick this one. We'll copy that color. And in my indicator text, I can paste that hex code, close the bracket, make sure we have a hashtag in front of it. So it's less than color equals hashtag hex code greater than. Then you have your text, and then you have less than / color greater than. We'll go ahead and save it just as we're working on it. You want to try too? Yeah, V, I would love to see your attempts at a card game, especially with RNG, because I know you made one for the tower defense game. Cool, so we have our Firefly and we have the fire type. And so that hovering text, we want to customize a little bit more. And we'll be able to use 3D space in the game maker to really get that nice look, depending on what angle we approach from. So for this one, we want our text. Why does it do this sometimes? It fixed itself. But we'll make the size bigger. We'll actually bold this as well for the Firefly name. I'll make it a one word. We'll do size equals 40, maybe 42. And B. And then we'll make sure we close that bracket as well. I don't like the text type, so I'm just going to remove the type text. And then we'll also increase the size of this one. This is the bottom text. We'll do size equals 24. But one thing to keep in mind with indicator components as of a recent patch is after some text, it will break the line. So for example, my Firefly, it broke the line after the L. So we will want a smaller text size so we can at least fit the word Firefly all on the same line. We'll try 38. And then we need to close that. Okay, so we have our Firefly. Then we have a fire type. A couple things to note is the player will always be in this kind of section. That's why I've created those red blocks on the screen. They'll be stuck in here. They won't be able to exit outside of this. That being said, we will want to associate our indicators in the 3D space to where they're never like overlapping. I also saw that some of our indicator displays looked a little ugly, so we'll remove those. We're actually going to test a few things. So our vertical offset, I do want to see if that affects our viewpoint. Interesting. So the text remains the same size, but relative in 3D space, it looks much, much uglier. So we'll actually reduce this. Maybe we'll try 0. So now at 0, it kind of stays relative to the card. Let's see what happens if we go even lower. Like, what if it's -1 and just touching the top of the card? That vertical offset can be used to our advantage. Now the text actually feels like it's, stuck in place. That's a cool effect. I think we'll keep that for now. So we have the fire type. We have our text on top. We're going to start adding numbers. So these numbers are actually going to be larger. Try 55. And our Firefly will have 2 attack. And then we'll also have a health pool. And he'll have 4 health. So this number here, both our health and our damage numbers, we're going to be tracking those. So that's going to be interesting to try and track that. But let's just say he gets hit by an enemy. That would reduce the 3 to a 4, or the 4 to a 3, sorry. Or maybe the enemy uses an attack down ability. And so all of those will be tracked using presets, indicators, and actual health. So we could, in theory, just use a literal health bar. But for our card game, I'm not quite sure if that's the look we want to go for. But because we're not sure, let's go ahead and try it. Let's see what it'll look like. We'll give it a health bar onto the Firefly text. And we'll have it always showing. So I'm not opposed to it. I think using the Sandbox health will actually help us a lot. It also almost perfectly fits the border of our card. I think we will use it. And then we'll maybe move the attack down to the bottom. What might be cool is we can also add, some unique features to our game, such as having experience points. Let's say every time our Firefly kills an enemy, he'll level up. And then maybe the first time he levels up, it only took 1 enemy. The second time, it takes 3 enemies to die. So we're just thinking out loud about, card game mechanics. A couple other things I would do with our UI here. I would probably add a heart. And this might even represent, the character or perhaps the defense. But I'm going to set that to the side for now. I would definitely add a sword. And so this way the player will understand, like, oh, that's his attack power, because the sword represents attack, right? And we could even set up our indicator to be, that sword icon. Food for thought. Cool. So with our cards, we're also going to be making a deck. So our deck will be on the left side of the screen. So I'll have that be our green squares here. And then on the right side of the screen, yellow will be our discard pile. We're going to have 20-ish objects here on the left side of the screen. We're going to be drawing, we'll say 3 objects at a time. And then every turn we have to play one and discard one. So the player is going to have to pick up things. For now, I'm going to need something that we can use carpets. Sure, let's use carpet cards. These are my cards. I mean, that's kind of fun. For now, we'll use the yellow ones. So we're going to have a total of 20 of these. Each one is going to be a pickable component. Oh yeah, Escape from Artist, I'm prepared. And each one of these cards, when we pick it up, it can only be picked up in our hand. So we don't need the player to be walking over to the deck of cards. Rather, they're kind of like dealt the cards, so the cards themselves will appear in our hand. So I think for fun, we're probably going to be doing like a 2v2 type of card game. So it's like the player can summon or has two monsters by default that are summoned. Our user interface, we have all of the cards on the left side and the right side. As we can see here in the middle, I have these 5 dots that will represent our energy. In the middle, we'll have our cards displayed, and the player will be able to pick them up like so, and then drag them to either their own cards or to the enemy's cards. They would drag them to their own cards if it was a boosting ability, such as like a defense increase, an attack power increase, speed increase, whatever. Or if it's an attack card, they would be able to bring it to the enemy where it would be consumed upon reaching there. So for now, we'll start setting up those hand, mechanics. Wait, where'd it go? Again, this has a pickable component. Our deck will not. Our deck will just be like a static icon. It might even have an animation. So this is me kind of thinking out loud about the deck itself. The deck will likely be an animated asset that will have a door behavior on it that essentially plays the dealing of cards. And so as it plays that animation, cards will spawn in our hand. There'll probably be another animated asset that resembles kind of cards being delivered to our hand. And then finally, the cards will appear. We might have like a cool effect as they show up. Cards themselves will have no collisions. And then we also want the offset of them to be in front of the player. And so then they're basically bringing these cards either to an enemy or to an ally. So we will go ahead and have like a fake one. So this our fake one here is going to be an attack that deals 1 point of damage. And it needs a tag. So that tag will be attack 0.1. And our first, enemy is going to be over here. We're going to be duplicating a lot of these things over time, but for now, we're just going to have, one thing working. This is going to be a message broadcaster that deals damage. 1. And it will deal that damage to anything within this radius, which will end up being our enemy card. So now I'm going to set up an enemy for our Firefly. So same setting here. However, based on our user interface, I'm unsure if I want the name of our enemies to be on the top or the bottom. I think it would make more sense if it's on the top. That's what we'll do. So it's more consistent. And this is our frost toad. So we can see here, E2 has the problem of having too long of a name for that size of a name. So we'll reduce it, try to get it all in one line here. So we save it periodically. So again, if anybody has questions, it doesn't have to be related to the game we're making, but game maker in general, feel free to ask. That's it. Today, is a great time to ask questions. I'm happy to, take a detour and help you troubleshoot something that you're working on in your own games. But we will be streaming for about 20 more minutes. I also will go over some news and Sandstorm stuff at the end. But feel free to ask whatever questions you got. We'll probably bring these up a little bit. Frost toad, our Firefly. That works for me. For consistency's sake, I'll probably use the same size. This one will be at 28. Get that UI looking clean. One thing to note is the health bar is currently green. I would actually want it to be red. So in order to make it a red health bar before our enemy, we'll want to make it a melee enemy. And so giving it that tag, which honestly, can I just give it the tag and color the health bar? It doesn't look like it. Tag stayed, but I'm going to see if the tag is what gives it the color instead of the behavior, because that would give us a lot more options. So enemy fighter was the other tag. I'm actually going to just take a quick screenshot of these tags and then just copy all of them and see if we get that red health bar. Which, let me just make sure it has that red health bar. Yes, it does. So this is using the melee enemy behavior. So instead of the behavior, I'm going to attempt to add the same tags. Nope. So it does appear to be attached specifically to the behavior. I'm going to remove all the tags to attack. I'm going to remove the speed. Chasing zone will also... we want to remove that, but it looks like we can't. We're just going to put everything at 0, or at least the lowest number. And then entering play mode again. You can see that red appears. Red kind of like glowing icon. I don't want that, but at the same time, we might be able to use that for something. But for now, nobody's actually going to interact with that. One other thing I would probably add to these cards is a shield. So using the small shield asset, this could represent, you know, a defense boost. Nice try. I was curious. Yeah, the escape room artist, that would have been cool. It would be a lot easier. I agree. But at least presets kind of like take care of that for us. So no display distance, no display arrow. Vertical offset, I like the negative number. It actually makes it appear more attached. So we're keeping that. No quest cursor. With our frog, he's going to have more defense than offense. Kind of like that rock, paper, scissors trifecta. And so this one, why the heck does this have melee enemy on it? We're going to add indicator component, same details here. Removing all the quest cursors, no arrow, offset will be underground. The 3D like text effect is actually a nice touch. I am a fan. However, it's very hard to read. So you might add a little bit of coloring. We'll try yellow. Definitely easier to read. I don't think I can add an actual like a border or like a drop shadow would be nice. But we can at least play with some of these effects. Like for example, I could give it a rarity component. And providing that rarity might be useful for certain things, like let's say he has a defense increase. Having that rarity component appear underneath will kind of tell the player like, oh, this has a boost. You know, this is increased. That might be a fun effect to play with. For now, we'll keep it as is. Maybe for the attack, we'll do red color. Overall, I just want this to be, you know, a user interface that makes sense, you know? Add a contrasting tile underneath. That would definitely help. That's kind of why we have the shield. I wonder what would happen if I did this. So, like how you were suggesting, but now we're using these blocks that basically represent, you know, how a card would move, would look. I think there's potential there. There's some serious potential. The one thing I don't like right now is our indicators don't seem to be on top of our assets. So I am going to just use a completely custom asset. Try a lower offset. Too low. Try 0. No. A little bit better. I think our -1 was the sweet spot at the moment. Again, the player probably will not go outside of this radius. So this will probably be like the stopping point. And -1 again. Yeah, it works for me. And we'll add the yellow color. I think it looks pretty cool. The text itself is probably doesn't need the bold. The bold I'll keep exclusive to the name of the character. Then I'll also reduce the size. We'll try 42 for this one. And it's gone. Size bold 2. Interesting. Oh, it's too hard to read. So maybe it does need the bold. Bold. Yeah, I mean, it's coming along. We more or less we've set up our user interface. I think having that UI and that kind of user experience expectation is going to set us up for success. So as long as we're able to kind of like draw the lines that then we can color in using some analogies here, it'll, you know, help us make a really great experience. Nice. But it's a work in progress. Let's see, what else? So we wanted to make a card that we could drag over and basically consume when it appears or approaches this character. So it's going to be dealing 1 point of damage to our toad, who is our enemy. So damage 1, specific tag enemy, wait before broadcast, attack, .1. Okay. And then this asset here is our attack.1. Actually going to be setting up a detector that when it detects, so that's a speaker component, detect entity, when it detects the attack.1, and we'll also have others, so it'll be like attack.2. This will also be target tag debuff. It's going to detect it and then send out the relative message. So I suppose we're going to be making multiples of these. So for the first one, we're just going to have the attacked one that's going to send a message. We'll do deal attack. There's a couple things that we can preemptively do. There's also a mark. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Fred. That's actually interesting. Is that like HTML? Oh, it's like a marker, so it'd be like a highlight function. Yeah, let's take a look at that. Maybe we can add it real quick. This would be like mark, and then at the end we'll do /mark. Oh, that's pretty cool. Interesting. It also made the mark the color. So what if... How can I change the color of the mark itself? I can have the mark have its own color tag. But yeah, good share there, Fred. So color equals black, and close the mark tag /color. Oh, I didn't do it. And then maybe also at the end of the mark tag, color equals black /color. Nope, I didn't do it either. Can I type a number in between each of the marks? So it's changing the color. Maybe mark in general is yellow. So what if I change this tag, this color, to green? I think just mark in general is yellow. Yeah. Interesting, though. So I guess we can only use yellow with that mark. Yeah, thanks for sharing there. Cool. Probably won't be using it. At least not for this part. I'll keep it in mind, though. Mark /color. All right, so again, when we pick up our carpet yellow, it has this display name, attack1. When we bring it over to our detector, it's going to be destroyed. It needs the health component. That when it's destroyed, we'll actually have it respawn to tag in our discard pile. And the instant death message will be attack.1. It won't have a health bar. And our discard pile, it's going to be over here. When it's destroyed, it spawns over on the discard. It's destroyed once it's detected. Again, it's detecting our attack.1. We want it to respond to a certain message. So each of our cards will only be destroyed when they're brought to the correct asset or detector. So for example, I'm going to have 2 detectors because there's 2 different targets a character can attack. We're going to attach those to our instant death messages. However, we can't have multiple death messages. We can have different messages sent on death, but that's not what we're looking for. So instead, the same death message is going to be detected and spat out. So attack.1. It's then going to be received by our message broadcaster. Message broadcaster is actually going to have its own enabler. So this will allow me to use messages on both sides of my playing field. So for example, if I'm on the left side of the screen, I'm going to have all of my message broadcasters toggled on when I'm on the left side of the screen. But if I'm on the right side of the screen, these will all be toggled off. We'll set that up real quick. Essentially, stepping onto this detector will be pcg.left. And then if I, I'm on the opposite side of the screen, and we'll actually have an auto hide of relatively low. This one will be PCG right. Both of these will have no collision, and they'll be invisible. By default, all of my message broadcasters will be turned off. But then turn on with the correct side, and then turn off with the incorrect side. Great. So that damage 1 will be received after attack 1, and it's going to my enemies. Hey, Pot Plucker, thanks for the follow. Welcome to the stream. So the other thing to note is if I get too close to this detector, my card, it's going to consume that card. So I need this to be a little bit of a smaller detection radius. That way I'm detected first. And our message broadcaster turns on, which then in turn deals damage to our enemy. Oh, Vivox, you were able to change the mark color. How? Tell us. You can't just say that and then not tell us. You can't do that. That's illegal. All right, so it's consuming the card. It is detecting it. So we can actually send this attack.1 message. Specifically, well, actually, we don't want to do that. Well, we want to send the message on death. But I want to see if this works first. We want that damage 1. We need it when it responds to attack.1. Attack.1 as a message happens here from this detector. Correct? So attack.1, that message goes out. When this message goes out, it's supposed to be received by our message broadcaster. So TCG left. I want to make sure this is reading me. And now it's not dealing damage to my enemy. So I need to make sure this enemy is within range. So enemy tag. This is my enemy tag. Perhaps this card needs a longer death delay. Nope, it's not dealing the damage. So I need this message broadcaster to be sending out 1 point of damage after receiving attack.1. It's turning on. We'll just make sure it's working. All right, now it's working. So I think it has something to do with our initial behavior. Okay, now it's working. So I'm unsure as to what I fixed, because I fixed a few things behind the scenes. My first thought is the capital D damage. Let's see if I can break it again. So lowercase damage. That was in fact the fix. So yeah, just keep in mind, I suppose, that you need capital D damage and capital H heal damage. Oh, you add the color equals hashtag color code inside the mark tag. We should totally try that. Also, I am over time. These things happen when you get on a roll. So let's go ahead and take a look at our marker tag here. I'll make a quick duplicate. We'll do mark. How do you add color? So you do mark color equals hashtag. Close it. Slash mark. Nope. Or did you make the color zone tag slash color? Oh. No, just inside of it. Mark. Oh, okay. Only close the mark tag. See? Oh, look at you. Okay, so we have the mark space color. Does it have to be a space? Interesting. Yeah, it does have to be a space. I wonder what other possibilities that opens. Try mark color equals green. Now it's not green. I think it has to be the hex code. Hashtag. So it does have to be a hex code. It's also making it a solid instead of translucent. So my next thought to follow up with that V would be to add transparency at the end. So if you add double digits, it adds transparency. Very cool. That's a little fun fact. If you're using text, for example, and you want to color that text, let's say it's yellow, if you add an additional 2 digits at the end, that would allow it to be translucent. Oh, okay, V, we're on the same page then. But now I've announced it, and I took your credit. So everybody, thank you for watching. Slater Aid, welcome back. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up. So thanks everybody for tuning in. I hope you all have a fantastic day. It's been fun exploring, this trading card game with you all. Starting, next Monday, we're going to be adding actual cards rather than carpets. that will probably add status effects. So we'll probably explore status effects as well as custom cards. We can see as I consumed that card, it appeared at my discard pile. And we're going to be spawning cards here in this middle section. Yeah, a lot of fun. Looking forward to building this. It's a fun kind of use case, you know, making a game like this. Yeah, thank you so much for hanging out, everybody. Yeah, we'll start up a raid. Hopefully this works. And pops 90. See if that goes through. It does not look like it will. Oh, she's streaming on the Sandbox channel. The Sandbox game. Hopefully that works. Anyway, Slater Raid would be able to queue up a raid. I'm going to go ahead and put up the ending screen. Hope to see you all over in the Sandbox official stream. Have yourself a fantastic day. Thanks for hanging out with the Sandstorm Meetup. Again, if you are interested in earning yourself a Alpha Pass, we have a raffle going on. There is also the ongoing competition for the Builders, a Halloween-themed party with the Cybercons. So do check that out. If that's something you'd be interested in. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Bye-bye.